Hello students, in the last video we were talking about birth chart and how to calculate our birth chart or natal chart. We talk about each of one of us has an energy signature that is affected by other energy forms including matter, and that a detailed examination of the birth chart takes time but reveals one's essence. We also said that individual planets that were most active during birth were important, and that zodiacal sign energies and rulerships of the planets or houses had to be examined. Now we're going to study about zodiacal types. In astronomy, the hardcore science of astronomy versus the pseudoscience of astrology as it is commonly known in the normal world, there are 13 constellations. These 13 constellations go around the sun in what is called the ecliptic. The ecliptic is an imaginary ellipse in which the 13 constellations are located. I know that when you are talking or you have heard about horoscopes, you probably think that there's only 12 constellations. That's because the number 13 was considered unlucky, and most pagan cultures use the number 13 in their calculations. However, once Christianity took over, most of the pagan rules and texts were either burned or lost, and so Christianity took over and decided to do the number 12 instead, leaving one of the greatest constellations out of the zodiac type, which is the serpent. Each individual at birth is considered to be a particular zodiac type, and their energy imprint predisposes them to be of a particular temperament. In Chinese medicine, the zodiac is linked together with health. They look at organ weaknesses peculiar to the particular sign. There are presently a few approaches to working with planetary energies for healing. Planetary affinities are determined. The concept behind this is that the planetary energies are locked up in physical material and have a determined reflection, stamping their influences and energies at each level of the human being. If the moon and the sun affect gravitationally, and there is certain vibration and frequency between them, how we cannot think that there is something like that in us and affecting us? Planetary energies produce effects in the body, the mind, and a spiritual level in each person. Each planetary influence can be experienced and worked with in turn to create physical and spiritual balance. In alchemy, the pattern of life, death, and rebirth is often repeated. I know that women probably already know this, but as you can see, they even have drawings in the Middle Ages about women and the moon's influence. Let me tell you a little bit about it. The female body is the one most affected by these changes. Everyone is familiar with how tides and water, or a female's period or menstruum, or even women giving birth at the same time because of the gravitational changes or energies coming from the moon. I have included a resource for you on how the lunar cycle affects women. We all know that women's bodies and feelings are influenced by a lot of things beyond our control. One of those influences, studies show, is the moon, the satellite of the Earth that rotates around us in a 29.5-day cycle thousands of miles away. Each month, the lunar cycle goes from a full moon to a new moon, moving itself in various positions and dictating our moods, sexual desires, and even reproductive tendencies. Some scientists and critics believe that this affects women most. We all heard about how the moon affects ocean tides, but what about a different kind of tide, like a women's menstrual cycle? While most assumptions on how the lunar cycle affects menstruation are speculation, several studies have been performed to try to find a correlation between the two. In the 1980s, Winifred Cutler published a study in the American Journal of Obstetrics and Gynecology that studied 312 university women who were menstruating. She found that 40% of participants had the onset of menstruation within 2 weeks of the full moon, which means they were ovulating during the dark phase, or second half of the moon cycle, when the moon isn't visible from Earth. The study shows 69 women had a menstrual cycle of about 29.5 days, the same length as the lunar cycle. Dr. Christian Northrup, an OBGYN, says the phrase moon time was used for ages as an euphemism for menstruation, and when women live together in clans, their menstrual cycles line up with each other and the moon cycles. Thanks to evolution, we don't necessarily have to be exposed to nature and the moon, nor do we have to live in a female cohort in order to feel the effects of the lunar cycle on our bodies. Emotions. In her book Moondance, The Feminine Dimensions of Time, Sue Rose says the lunar cycle directly impacts our emotions and energizes the collective unconscious. She suggests that our feelings are connected with the lunar cycle, and if we observe our relationship to the larger cycle, we can adapt this too shall pass attitude. She says as you get more used to linking your moods with the lunar cycle, you will be able to anticipate the feelings and emotions you have on a given day. She recommends keeping a journal of feelings and moods and tracking the moon's movement each day. You will see firsthand that moods are not accidental and that there is a profound lunar method to the great cosmic madness, she says. How about sexual influence? Michael Rabushar, a Hawaii-based board-certified clinical sexologist who offers telephone counseling, says the cycles of the full and new moons influence our sexual tendencies and feelings. In his article, What Everyone Needs to Know About Women's Moon Cycles, he says, this is why you sometimes go through a period of intense sexual energy, followed by a period where you're not feeling so hot and sex is the farthest thing from your mind. He recommends monitoring the amount of fullness you feel through the month. The best time to notice this feeling is right before your period, but it can be felt in lesser degrees throughout the moon cycle. He says to look for heightened emotions and sexual desire, an unwillingness and inability to make simple decisions, feelings of insecurity, a craving for sticky or gooey foods, a subtle musky odor emanating from the body, and dark circle under the eyes as indicators of the moon's influence during a full moon. I think we can all agree that these things are extremely important if you are, for example, a medical practitioner trying to assess why some women retain weight or having trouble losing weight,